If you're buying a home in Duluth, there's a few things you really need to know about before doing so. First off, the amount of days that a home stays on the market in Duluth is about 12 days in the last 6 months. Compare this to other Atlanta suburbs like Johns Creek, where the average amount of days for a listing is like 8 days, or Alpharetta, where it's like 7 days, and we can see that Duluth has a bit less buyer demand than those other more popular cities. So you're not fighting the crowd as much in Duluth. You're not having to be in multiple offer situations as much as those other popular cities. And so ultimately, this is great for buyers. Less buyer competition in Duluth than other Atlanta suburbs around that area. This also means that you can be a bit more patient in Duluth when you're home shopping than some of these other cities that have higher demand. So when a home pops up in Duluth and you think it's the right one, I would suggest kind of being patient with that home, as Duluth does not have as much buyer competition. So you can kind of weigh your pros and cons and you can decide, is this the right home? You can have a longer inspection period in Duluth than some of the other homes. You can have longer financing and appraisal contingencies in Duluth. And so all of this kind of favors the buyers because there aren't as many people trying to buy homes here. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live here in Atlanta and the surrounding suburbs. Duluth does not have as much buyer competition, but it's not that Duluth is a bad city by any means. While the average amount of days a home stays on the market there is 12 days, the average for all of Atlanta is 14 days. So I'm not by any means saying that Duluth is a bad area to live. It's just not as popular as cities like Johns Creek or Alpharetta, which are the most popular suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta. So Duluth is right about there, similar to like the average for all of Metro Atlanta. And we're actually going to talk about some of the pros and cons of living in Duluth as well, so that you can get a better understanding of what makes it popular or not so popular in just a minute. Another really important thing that you need to know about before buying a home in Duluth is how much the homes cost here. The average sold price for a home here in Duluth in the last 6 months has been about $535,000. So there are homes as low as 400, maybe even high 300s, but the average is right there about 535. Compare this to, again, Johns Creek or Alpharetta, where the average home prices are closer to 800,000, and we can see that Duluth is a much better deal. Also, the reason I'm comparing them to Johns Creek and Alpharetta is because these cities are very close to each other. Johns Creek and Duluth in some places kind of border each other, so these two cities are often, when people are shopping for a home in Duluth, they're also typically considering areas like Johns Creek and Alpharetta. So in my opinion, you can get more home for, well, not just my opinion, the numbers show that you can get more home for your money in Duluth, but there is more like buyer demand in Alpharetta and Johns Creek. If you plan on buying a home in Duluth, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm the one who answers these phone calls, text messages, emails. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. But another thing you really need to know about Duluth if you're going to be buying a home here is where exactly this is located. It's in Gwinnett County. Johns Creek and Alpharetta are in Fulton County, and so while they do border each other, Duluth is in a very different county. Gwinnett is a county that is, in my opinion, a little less expensive for sure. I think it's going to be a bit more racially, culturally diverse in Gwinnett County, especially in the city of Duluth. And then also you have excellent public schools in all of Gwinnett County. And so this is one of the things that brings a lot of people to the city of Duluth, is these excellent public school ratings. In addition to that, the average age for a home in Duluth is right about the mid-90s. So 94, 95, 96 is the average of all of the homes that were sold in the last 6 months. I took a look at the whole list And right there, the median is about 94, 95. So this really is something to think about, especially when you're having your home inspection, because homes, they're average about 95. You're looking at many homes that are about 30 years old. And so 30 years old tend to have some common problems. For example, like a roof, if the owner had never changed the roof from the day that the house was built to today, you're looking at a roof that's at the end of its lifespan. Of course, this could be a big issue, and you want to make sure that the home inspector looks carefully at the roof, especially if it's 30 years old. In addition to that, another one that we commonly see here in Metro Atlanta and any home that's about 30 years old is the HVAC. Oftentimes people don't change the HVAC, or like the air conditioning, the heater. And so if these things are also original to the home, they would also be 30 years old. And while it's possible that they could still function 30 years later, again, they would be at the end of their lifespan, not at the beginning. And so these are all things that you can easily negotiate for better prices, or for the sellers to repair or replace in Duluth, because of the lack of buyer demand there, because you don't want to buy a home with a roof or an HVAC that's got 30 years age on it. That's definitely going to be a problem any day now. Another issue that was super common in the mid 90s for many homes that were built during that time is polybutylene plumbing. This is a well-known, infamous kind of plumbing that was used for a very short amount of time during the mid 90s that people very quickly realized had lots of defects and caused lots of water leaks and problems. And so homes that are still with polybutylene plumbing very often don't sell for as much as their neighbor homes who maybe have copper plumbing or PEX plumbing. And so any home with polybutylene plumbing, you definitely need to be very hesitant of, and something that you need to check thoroughly. Of course, the home inspector would check all of these things to let you know the condition of all of these home systems and home components. Now, here in Georgia, the average amount of time that we typically do for a home inspection is about 3 to 5 days. If it's a very strong seller's market, you might be able to get 3 days for a home inspection, which is plenty of time for us here in Georgia. We typically have an inspector out there in 24 hours and have that report back very, very quickly. But now during this buyer's market, especially in Duluth, where it's very much a buyer's market, it's not uncommon to get 5, maybe even 7 days for a home inspection. And so there's plenty of time right now for home inspections. As we get closer to the spring and early summer of 2025, you're going to see that home inspections start to come down shorter and shorter amount of time, 3, maybe 4 days. And so all of these things are going to happen during that inspection period. The home inspector is going to go out to the home and check all of these different parts of the home. And then the average size for a home in Duluth is about 2,400 square feet. Again, in the last 6 months, out of all of the homes sold, the median was about 2,400 square feet. And so this is kind of what you can expect for a home in that 530, 540 price range. Now, there's definitely a lot of great things about living in Duluth. For example, the amount of cultural diversity that you can find here, especially a very strong Asian population with amazing Asian food. This can be found everywhere in Duluth and is one of the best parts about living here. You can find a lot more racial diversity here in Duluth than other parts of Metro Atlanta, but there are some downsides of living here. Not only are the homes from the mid-90s, but much of the infrastructure of Duluth is from the mid-90s or even later. And so you have some infrastructure problems here. And so if you're thinking about buying a home in Duluth, it's really important that you have the whole picture, not just the good of living here, but also the bad of living here. And so we've made an entire video concerning the pros and the cons of living in Duluth. You can check it out right here. I'll see you in the next one.